Hello, I'm Joe Silvera, and we're here in my jewelry school, Silvera Jewelry School in Berkeley, California. And we're here with Beaducation to film a short video on how to safely set up to solder at home. Now, you might think at first that it's kind of weird to solder in a home environment, but when I think about the places that I've soldered in, they included spare bedrooms when I was in college, and even office suites when I worked as a repairman and doing production work. And those office suites had carpeting, regular drywall. They were just like working in a room in your house. The only difference is that we practiced common sense safety. So we just made sure that we were safe with the torches and the equipment and how we set up. And that's exactly what we're going to show you today on this video. So we're here with Beaducation to film that for you. And if you want more information about torch safety and how to properly use and refuel the torch, you should refer to our video on torch safety. Now, let's get started. When you set up at home to solder, you want to think about where in your house or in your studio you're setting up. So the best place is in a location that has a lot of ventilation already built in, a nice open space, maybe someplace near a window, so that you can open the window to get some fresh air. There's not a lot of fumes that come off of the soldering equipment that we're going to use for this home soldering, but you want to be safe, especially if you're doing this a lot because you suddenly love soldering, you've decided this is going to be your full-time gig, and you want to be good to yourself while you're working with the chemicals. So setting up near a window, maybe have a little fan nearby so that you can draw the air away from where you're working. You could even set up a window fan with a little bit of ducting, like just cheap ducting from the hardware store that came down and over your work area, so it would just draw the fumes right away from where you're working. But again, these chemicals are the safest they can be for soldering, so if you're only doing this infrequently, it's not a big deal. Just don't set up in a walk-in closet or confined space where you don't have a lot of ventilation. Now, you want to be prepared just in case anything happens while you're soldering that you didn't expect, like an ornery piece of metal jumping off the table while it's hot and doing something chaotic. So you want to make sure that you're wearing natural fiber clothing just in case it hits you. So best to protect yourself and your clothing by wearing a cotton apron. You don't want to wear synthetic on the day that you're using hot stuff because hot things burn right through synthetic fabrics and melt, and that's not good. So natural clothing, natural fibers. You want to protect your floor in case it misses you and hits the floor. So the most ideal floor surface would be concrete, but if you have to set up in a room that's got carpeting or tile or hardwood floor, maybe think about putting something on the floor that will protect it and take the hit for it so that you don't have burn spots. So for example, you could use remnant carpets or an office mat or something that you can kind of see if something hot hits it, make sure that it's extinguished, and roll up later so you don't have to explain anything embarrassing to guests when they come over and see your space. Now, as far as other safety stuff, the best thing you can have around just in case something goes a little bit awry and you get a little tiny fire going is a little cup of water. Right, so that you can put that out. That's going to cover 99% of any accidents, is just to have some water on your table. In case of something really bad, which is very, very rare, you want to have something nearby like a fire extinguisher. So even a little one will do, and I just keep it somewhere nearby so that if I need to get to it, I can. And of course, all you lovely ladies and endowed gentlemen out there have hair, more hair than I do, and you want to keep that back and out of the work area here. So tie it back, but watch out for the bangs. It's not a problem I have to worry about anymore, but if you're leaning over your hot work area, you can easily sizzle up a little bit of hair. So just clip that stuff back and make sure you don't have your pirate sleeves on while you're soldering, that your sleeves are rolled back and away from the hot working area. The table height and the chair that you're working with in your soldering location, it makes a difference for you ergonomically. It can make the difference between a happy back and a painful back when you're done working. So if your work area is too low, you have to kind of scrunch and hunch to see the tiny jewelry stuff that you're soldering, like the little bits of solder and the little small scale stuff that you're working with. So it's better to have things at a good height. Now, when I work at my jewelry bench, because I'm a big jeweler now, I am working more like this height. you know, so closer to my eye level, and you get used to working at that height. You don't have to bend your back as much while you're working. But if you're doing this at home and you're just working at a normal table, you could use an office chair that has an adjustable button on the side so you can lower yourself down, so like that. So now I'm down lower to the work area, so it's easier for me to see. Now, I also don't want to have to be really close to the hot stuff while I'm working. So I want to make sure that I have proper magnification. Now I have safety glasses, which we'll talk about more in the torch safety video. And my safety glasses are prescription, so they're already a little bit tweaked by the optician so that this is clearer for me when I work. But if it's still not good enough, then I can put on some low power magnification like these clip-ons to really get my jewelry geek on and see things even more clearly. And then I get the little bunny face when I put them up too, which is perfect. So just keep your head behind this line. Don't use high power magnification so you're having to be inches away from something that's about 2,000 degrees. And you'll be happier, you'll feel better, and you'll be safer. The setup on your table for soldering looks something like this. So you have an area for you to solder in where you have your boards and your bricks or honeycomb or charcoal. You have maybe an extra surface area so that you can keep tools that might be a little bit warm for a while so they don't burn the table, flux, you know, just so you don't get flux on your table, and your pickle and water in a tray so that they don't get the table wet with any of that. So you want to protect the tabletop from any of the heat from the torch while you're working. So the primary surface you're working on is the solder board, but these tiles underneath are just to protect the table from the heat that could go through this surface and burn your table. So these are just inexpensive tiles from the hardware store. They're in the floor tile section. They're usually around $1. Having 2 of them, like I said, increases your work area so that you've got more place to put things. Now, alternative surfaces you could use for this would include like a piece of stainless steel, thin gauge, doesn't have to be very thick, like 18 gauge. And you can also use a remnant piece of tile backer board. That's what you use for tile projects around the house. It's made of concrete, so it's nigh on flame proof. Now, on top of this tile surface, which you don't really do any work directly on, you have the solder board. So this is what you work on right here. This is where you do your soldering. And you prepare your solder and all sorts of stuff on there. Now you have a choice of other materials that you can use to boost the heat because this is a little cold. So if I use fire brick or charcoal or honeycomb, for example, all of these will magnify the heat and boost the heat while I'm working to make the butane torch more effective and to make the soldering go faster. Now, fire brick, although it's got brick in the name, is not the same as a brick you'd find around the house or for household projects. This is a specialty brick that you would find more at a ceramic supply because they use it to make kilns. So it really reflects the heat. Normal bricks are too dirty and they just suck the heat away, so it won't work for soldering. Honeycomb is synthetic, so it's pretty clean, and charcoal is especially nice. You see it a lot in soldering because it helps to keep your metal clean while you're working. The flux and tweezers and pick and brush and pliers, these are all on the right side because I'm a right-handed person. So I need to be able to pick them up with my right hand without having to reach over, you know, the work area. I know things can get kind of chaotic and the tools can spread out, but if you're having to reach over all of this stuff that you were just heating to get to it, there's a good chance you could burn yourself accidentally. So all of that's on the right. And even as a right-handed person, the hand that I use the torch in is my left hand. I don't need a lot of dexterity, a lot of control to do this with the torch, but I need more dexterity with my dominant hand to use the tweezers, the pick, the brush, etc. like that. So it just makes things more ergonomic. Of course, if you're a lefty, this is just reversed and the torch is on your right and the picks, tweezers, etc. are on your left. I usually put the pickle pot up to the right, again, because it's easier to reach with that hand to get to stuff. And I have a towel handy for wiping down any flux spills or tools that need to be wiped down a little bit. Another piece of equipment you'll need for soldering is, of course, some solder. Solder comes in 3 forms: wire, sheet, and paste. And it also comes in 3 melting points, 3 common melting points, also called flow points. The flow points for solder are easy, medium, and hard, going up in temperature. So easy is the lowest, then medium, and then hard is synonymous with high temperature. Choose safer chemicals and equipment for soldering at home so that your setup is as home-friendly as possible. Let's start with the pickle. So traditionally, pickles can be kind of acidic. Mild acids, but still acidic, to where if it splashed on your clothing, it would make pinholes in your clothing or potentially on your tabletop. So you have a choice now in the 21st century. You can use natural, biodegradable, citric acid based pickle. So that's the safest thing you can use at home. And that way if it splashes out, it doesn't make as big of a mess. It's a little sticky, but it easily cleans off with some Windex or even just some warm water. So that's what I have here in this crock pot, which holds the pickle. Now, of course, you don't want to use this crock pot for anything else like chocolate fondues or little quick stews or anything like that. This is only for pickle now. And the whole thing is in a tray, so that if there are any splashes, you can clean it up pretty easily and take it away. And we have pickle tongs that are nice and long, so you can reach in there and pick out your stuff. Now, even though it's just citric acid, it still hurts like a dickens. If you get it in your finger and you've got a cut or something, it really burns. The other thing you can choose for working safely at home is your torch. You don't have to have a torch with tanks like propane and oxygen or acetylene. You can use butane. This is a cooking torch. If you decide later that you don't like soldering, you can use this to make creme brulee. So it's already made to work in a kitchen. It's safe to work with at home. Now, butane's a little bit lower temperature than oxypropane or oxyacetylene, but by lower temperature, it's still 2,500 degrees. That's hot enough to do a lot of soldering. When you fill it up with butane, you want to use premium quality butane, the best you can afford. If you buy the cheap stuff or low quality butane, it tends to clog the torch and kind of grease up the works in here, making the torch possibly not light or work. So buy the best that you can. We have a lot more about torch safety and refueling on the torch safety video. And as long as we're being friendly to our tabletop, you can take cork pads and put them underneath your tiles so that when you move these around, they don't scrape your table and make scratches. So that makes those more friendly for your work area. Another chemical you use for soldering is flux. So making sure that things are friendly, you want to have the flux on a surface that you can easily clean. And any flux that gets on the tabletop, it just cleans off with water and a damp towel. Never use any chemicals like Windex or clean cleansers directly on your tile or soldering surfaces for cleaning, because if you heat those up accidentally, it can create fumes. Well, we hope you enjoyed the video on setting up to solder safely at home. And I hope that you've also enjoyed the background noises of Berkeley outside, including trains, whistles, and all sorts of car noises. But keep in mind that just with a little common sense and basic safety rules, that you can solder safely at home. Thank you, and we hope to see you soon again here at Beaducation.